someone comes to stream it in a bit, that's fine. Okay, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm subbing in for Imam Majid today. And we're covering Ihya Ulum Deen. And we're in the section of Rubu' al-Muhlikat. As you know, the Ihya Ulum Deen, it's separated into different sections. There's a section that Imam Ghazali has an introduction to the different Islamic sciences to. There's a section that deals with the things that destroy a human being. There's a section that deals with the spiritual realities that save human beings. We're on the section where he's dealing with spiritual nuances that can destroy your soul. And one of them is a desire to be popular, to be well known, right? Or to have a status amongst people. So here's a question, just an introduction to this subject. Let's just ask a question. Is it problematic in Islam to want to be famous? What do y'all think? It is problematic. Why is it problematic to want to be famous?
Seek it out.
Okay, why is it problematic to seek out fame? Okay, riya, all right. What is riya? Showing off, all right. So let's say that I am an excellent chef and I want to show off a meal. Okay, is that riya? I want people to know. I want people to know I'm an excellent chef. Is that riya? Oh, but I do everything for the sake of Allah. Okay, so you're saying there's a difference between ritual and non-ritual. Okay, all right. So there's a difference between seeking fame for religious purposes, and there's a difference between seeking fame maybe for worldly purposes. Is that fair? Now it's not so easy, right? Sometimes we think about things as Muslims in ways that are kind of generalized, but the truth is in the nuance. And answering questions like that is what Imam Ghazali is going to try to do before he addresses the real root issue behind wanting to be famous and where that's coming from in the nafs. So Imam Ghazali, a lot of what he does in the Ihya Ulum Deen, he's like a surgeon for the nafs. Okay? Have you ever dissected anything before? Like in biology class or something like dissect? So in dissection, what do? You pick everything apart. You cut everything, you separate the fascia, you separate out the muscle, you see, oh, here's the myotendinous junction, here's, this particular entity, here's that entity. And then you know what everything is. Once you know what everything is, now you can understand diseases, right? Because you can't understand the disease unless you know what it's affecting, right? Once you know what the disease is. In this section, بيان ما يحمد به حب الجاه وما يذم. This is an explanation of to what extent is it okay to want to be famous, right? And to what extent is it problematic, right? So first he's going to lay down definitions, right? So he says, rahimahullah, مهما عرفت أن معنى الجاه ملك القلوب, right? As long as you understand that the idea of being famous, essentially what it is owning people's hearts. Like, that's what it is. Fame is owning people's hearts. He's like, let's just set that as the definition. Every time you talk about something, you gotta define it, right? He's setting this as the definition. Fame is owning people's hearts, right? وَقُدْرَةُ عَلَيْهَا, being powerful over them. وَحُكْمُهُ حُكْمُ مَالِ مِلْكِ الْأَمْوَالِ, right? The ruling of this is really the same thing as owning money. It's a part of dunya, he's like, okay? You own someone's heart because you're famous, just like you own someone's money. Right, and isn't that the case? Because when you own someone's heart and you're famous in their eyes, you have status in their eyes, you're important in their eyes, can't you get them to do things for you? Can't you persuade them to do, doesn't your words influence them, right? So you have power, right? Same thing as money. When you have money, you can do things, money can do things for you. Same thing as if you're famous. So that's how he sets up the definition. Remember, he's a surgeon of the nafs. He's gonna dissect this thing first, so we understand exactly what fame is and where this is in our nafs, and then he's going to talk about how to treat it, right? So he says, فَإِنَّهُ عَرَضٌ مِنْ عَرَاضِ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَيَنْقَطَعُ بِالْمَوْتِ كَالْمَالِ. This is a part of the dunya, and it goes away like everything else in the dunya when you die, okay? وَالدُّنْيا مَزْرَعَةُ الْآخِرَةِ فَكُلُّ مَا خَلَقَ فِي الدُّنْيا فَيُمْكِنُ أَن يَتَزَوَّدُ مِنْهُ لِلْآخِرَةِ. Dunya is a part of the next life. Because it's like you're like a farmer here. Whatever you put in this life, you're going to reap the rewards in the next life. وَكَمَا أَنَّهُ لَا بُدَّ مِنْ أَدْنَى مَا لِضَرُورَةِ الْمَطْعَمِ وَالْمَشْرَبِ وَالْمَلْبَسِ فَلَا بُدَّ مِنْ أَدْنَى الْجَاهِ لِضَرُورَةِ الْمَعِيشَةِ مَعَ الْخَلْقِ. He says, look, if we say wanting to be famous or having popularity or notoriety is a part of the dunya, then how is that any different from food? You need a little bit of food to survive, right? You need a little bit of money to survive, right? All that is dunya too. So can we say, Imam Ghazali is starting out like this, can we say having a little bit of notoriety in society is okay for your dunya just to survive, right? Can we say that? So this is how he starts, okay? Because if we say it's just like fame is just a part of dunya, just like wealth is, so why don't you just treat it just like wealth? Okay, so now he's going to set this up. So he's going to say, وَالْإِنسَانِ كَمَا لَا يَسْتَغْنِي عَنِ الطَّعَامِ يَتَنَاوَلُهُ فَيَجُوزُ أَنْ يُحِبُّ الطَّعَامِ أو المال الذي يبتاع به الطعام فكذلك لا يخلو عن الحاجة إلى خادم يخدمه ورفيق يعينه وأستاذ يرشده وسلطان يحرسه ويدفع عنه ظلم الأشرار. He said, look, here's the thing. You need food just to survive. You need a friend for companionship. You need a sultan, someone, a political authority, okay, to ward off evil for you, okay? Someone who can ward off like a police system or something like that, right? You need a teacher who can guide you, right? You need all these different things, and all these are actually parts of the dunya as well, he says, okay? فحبه لا يكون له في قلب خادمه من المحال فحبه لأن يكون له في قلب خادمه من المحل ما يدعوه إلى خدمة فليس بمذموم. So let's say this servant, let's say you have a servant. To the extent that you want to be famous in the heart of your servant, i.e. to the extent that you want to have a high place in the heart of your someone who's helping you, like a servant or something, okay? Because if they have that in their heart, they'll actually serve you. He's like, that's fine. And then he goes on and says, to the extent that you want a place in the heart of your teacher so that they're motivated to teach you, like, that's fine. To the extent that you want to be known by the authorities so that the authorities know that you're someone to protect, that's fine. It's like, that's not problematic. None of that is problematic, right? وحبه لأن يكون له من المحل في قلب سلطان ما يحث ذلك على دفع الشر عنه فليس بمذموم فإن الجاه وسيلة إلى الأغراض كالمال. Fame in this sense, being popular in this sense, is nothing more than a means to a goal. You see? This is nothing more than a means to a goal because look, I may want to be well known in the heart of some people who are serving me, right? Or I may want to have a status in there, so they're motivated to serve me. I may want to be known by my teacher in class, and I may want that teacher to know certain quality, so he's motivated or she's motivated to teach me. I may want to be known by certain authorities, so that they know I'm here so that they can protect me, right? And he mentions these political, social aspects of a person's life, right? He says, it may be nothing more than, it can be nothing, potentially nothing more than a means to achieve a goal, right? Just like wealth is nothing more than a means to achieve a goal. فلا فرق بينهما لأن إلا أن التحقيق في هذا يفضي إلى أن لا يكون المال والجاه بأعيانهما محبوبين له. Except that you don't want the popularity in and of itself to be your goal, right? It's a means to a greater end. بل ينزل ذلك منزلة الحب الإنسان أن يكون له في داره بيت الماء. It's just like wanting a bathroom in your house, right? He's like, لأنه مضطر إلى قضاء حاجته ويود لو استغنى عن قضاء الحاجة حتى يستغني عن بيت الماء. It's just like having a bathroom in your house, okay? It's not that you love the bathroom for its own sake. You like the bathroom because it's a means through which you can fulfill a human need, right? But if you no longer had that need, you would no longer need to go to the bathroom, right? So it's like, to the extent that it's just a means to an end, and you're just using it like any other aspect of dunya, like, that may not be problematic at all. فهذا على تحقيق ليس محبا لبيت الماء. This person, like in this example, he doesn't love the bathroom for its own thing. He just likes the bathroom because it's a means through which he can remove a need, right? فكل ما يراد للتوسل به إلى المحبوب فالمحبوب هو المقصود المتوسل إليه, right? So this is an important principle in Islam, he says. Whatever you like, as long as that thing that you like, you don't like it in and of itself. You like it because it's a means to a noble goal, that's fine, right? As long as that means is not haram, right? So it's like fame, notoriety, popularity, okay? Like it's confusing because as Muslims we're taught a lot of times you shouldn't seek it out, you shouldn't seek it. But what if, okay? I'm a researcher and I write papers, okay? The only way I can propel my career is if I make as many people as possible become aware of the research that I'm doing. I need to be famous, right? I need to be, otherwise I'm not gonna get a job opportunity. I'm not gonna get a grant. University's not gonna give me money. I need as many people to know about this as possible. So I may put that out on Twitter. I may be a chef, right? And I may be coming up with all kinds of new food type creative inventions. I may post them on Twitter. I may want hundreds of thousands of likes. Not because I want to be famous in and of itself, because there's no way I'm gonna get a job at a 3-star Michelin restaurant unless there's enough notoriety around this thing, right? It's simply a means, right? And it's interesting, he compares it to a bathroom. It's like the lowest, he's like, it could be, it's to him, the dunya, it's just dunya, it's the lowest thing, right? So, as long as that's what it is, and you don't like it in and of itself, right? Then it's not problematic, right? But oh, how hard is that? That's very difficult. So remember, in this section, he's just being a surgeon. He's just dissecting. We're just dissecting. We're just defining, right? And then in the next couple of sections, he's going to talk about how to treat it, okay? But we have to set, just like any surgeon, just like any medical doctor, first you have to define what you're dealing with, what you're treating, right? And then you can kind of move from there. Okay, so وَتُدْرَكُ التَّفَرَّقَةُ. So he says, you can know the difference between loving fame in and of itself versus loving it for something that's more of a noble cause. Okay, he said you can know تُدْرَكُ التَّفَرَّقَةُ. You can know the difference between these. بمثال آخر وهو أن الرجل قد يحب زوجته من حيث إنه يدفع بها فضلة شهوة كما يدفع ببيت الماء فضلة طعام ولو كفي مؤنة شهوة لكان يهجر زوجته. He's like, okay, the worst person, okay, here's another example, the worst person. He, just like someone likes having a bathroom in their house, so not because of the bathroom, but because they can fulfill a need. Someone may love their spouse, not because they love their spouse, but because there's nothing more than fulfilling a need. He's not sanctioning that. He's just saying, here's another example, okay? He's like, and if that person no longer had that sexual need, they would leave their spouse, right? And so it's just, here's another way, he's like, here's another way to understand what I'm trying to say. It's just a means to an end, right? كما أنه لو كفي قضاء الحاجة لكان لا يدخل بيت الماء ولا يدور به وقد يحب الإنسان زوجته لذاتها. But someone else might love their spouse just for their sake, not because they're a means to something else. حب المشتاق, someone who's really in love, right? ولو كفي الشهوة لبقي مستصحبا لنكاحها. And even if that person can't fulfill their desire with that person, they would still stay with them because that person is not a means to an end. They are the end, right? So here's how you can understand the difference of what I'm talking about. Some things are a means to an end, right? And some things are an end in and of themselves. There's an important principle in usul, al-umur bi-maqasidiha, right? Things are judged according to your maqsad. What does maqsad mean? Goal, objective, and maqasid are the goals and objectives you have. So, it's kind of like إنما الأعمال بالنيات, actions are by intentions, but it's kind of broader than that as well. So then he says, فهذا هو الحب دون الأول وكذلك الجاه والمال. This is exactly what notoriety is like, okay? قد يحب كل واحد منهما على هذين الوجهين فحبهما لأجل توصل بهما إلى مهمات البدن غير مذموم. If you like this, fame and fortune, if you're seeking it for something other than it, like maybe it's even just like you seek food for the sake of your body, not for the sake of food in and of itself, okay? Like, not problematic. وحبهما لأعيانهما فيما يجاوز ضرورة البدن وحاجته مذموم. But to the extent that you like notoriety, you like people knowing about you, you like fame, you like fortune, more than what is needed for your goal or objective, now here's where we draw the line. Here's where the problem starts to come in, okay? ولكنه لا يوصف صاحبه بالفسق والعصيان. Now this is really important. But someone who is like that, someone who does like notoriety, fame, and fortune, do we call that person a sinner? Is a question. Do we call someone who wants attention, wants notoriety, wants fame for nothing other than fame's sake? Exactly what Imam Ghazali is saying you should not do. Someone just wants fame just to be, they want the likes on Facebook because they get dopamine from likes. And they're like, give me those likes. And I'll put anything on there just to get likes, okay? Do we call that person a sinner, a fasiq? Do we call that person Islamically corrupt, if you will? What do you all think? Is that a sin? We got to know. There's any yes? Okay, we got to kind of. What do you think? What if they're not conscious? Like, what do you like? Oh, okay. Well, that's what most people who do wrong things think. That's not an excuse Islamically. Okay. But the question here is, do we use the word ithm? It's very important. Okay. Do we use the word sin for that person who just wants to be popular for the sake of being popular, which Imam Ghazali said, that is problematic. It's okay when it's a means to a noble goal, but in and of itself is problematic. Do we call that person sinful? We do. So we have one yes, we have a no in the back, we have a kind of here. Any sisters, any opinions from the sister side? No opinions from the sister side? The brother in the back is correct. Imam Ghazali says, لا يوصف صاحبه بالفسق. We do not call that person, a fisq wal isyan. We don't call them corrupt. We don't call them a sinner, okay? There's a really important principle. There's a difference between saying something is not ideal, not good for your spiritual cultivation, okay? لَيْسَ بِمَحْبُوبٍ. It's not beloved to Allah. The difference between saying that and saying something is a sin. Big difference. Because here, when you say something is sinful, you're saying there is a direct hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, an action that we have from him, right? A verse from the Quran, a threat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has categorized that thing as sinful, which means you now must make tawbah for it, okay? We don't necessarily call that sinful, but we do say that's problematic, Okay? However, he'll say this, ما لم يحمله الحب على مباشرة المعصية. So long as, we won't call him sinful, so long as the fame in and of itself is not causing him to commit a sin. You see? Because a lot of times they do become mixed. So a lot of times that fame, that notoriety, will cause you to start hanging out with people, will cause you to start associating with crowds, will cause you to start signing contracts with this, that, and the other. And those things are sinful. So now that is problematic. Okay? And that is, then we can say that this now is sinful, right? وما يتوصل به للاكتساب بكذب الوخداع والارتكاب محظور. And anything that also, from this notoriety that you're gaining from people, that causes you to lie, deceive people, right? That's also prohibited, right? وما لم يتوصل للاكتساب بعبادتي. So now here we go back to the thing that the brother said about riyah. And even if it doesn't cause you to sin, if it's ritualistic worship, now that's also prohibited. So here now he's gonna draw the line of definition between seeking popularity for a dunya sense and seeking popularity in a religious sense. Okay? So he says, فَإِنَ التَّوَسُّلْ إِلَى الْجَاهِ وَالْمَالِ, seeking notoriety, right? بِالْعِبَادَةِ, through worship. And this, the ulama will specifically say, is ritualistic worship. Like rituals, salat, saum, right? Recitation of Quran, okay? Hajj, right? Seeking fame. From this, jinayatan ala deen, or jinayatun ala deen. This is a crime against religion. It is a crime against religion. وَهُوَ حَرَامٌ, and it is absolutely prohibited. وَإِلَيْهِ يَرْجَعُ مَعْنَى الرِّيَاءِ. And this is what the meaning of riya comes back to. Al-mahdhur kama sayati, which is to be avoided, as he says, I'm going to explain. So someone explained to me, someone's already explained what riya is, showing off in a religious sense. What does the Prophet say about riya? What is it? What's the reality of riya? What does he say? That it's what? What is it when you show off in a religious sense? What is that? Did the Prophet define what that actually is? A minor form of polytheism. A minor form of shirk. Now here's the question. If I stand here and I pray, and I notice someone's looking at me, and now I beautify my voice, I pray a little longer, because I know that person is going to go tell this person, who's going to go tell this person, and now I'll start to get a reputation in the masjid as a pious person. Notoriety. Okay? Like this is different now. This is ibadah. This is ritual. Why is that a minor form of polytheism? Why is that a minor form of shirk? That seems very, very stern. Especially since we know what's the only sin that's not going to be forgiven? Shirk, right? So why is that a minor form of shirk? Someone explain that to me. Okay. You're not doing it for Allah, you're doing it to be recognized by man. So why is that? Why is that shirk? Because you, in the back, what do you think? That's very much a part of it. You see, when I stood here and I was praying to Allah, let's say my intention was first good, okay? When I stood here and I was praying to Allah, who was I expecting that would reward me? Allah. That was an issue. But then my intention changed, and now who am I expecting to reward me? The community, right? The person who rewards you for worship can only be Allah. If you transfer that status of the mu'ti, the rewarder of what you're doing for the sake of worship, if you transfer that to now I want my reward as praise from the community, you've given something that belongs only to Allah to other than Allah. And that's shirk. Oh, but he calls it minor shirk. It's very hard to see. Like seeing a black ant on a black rock in a black night. That's how the Prophet says is difficult. That's how difficult it is to see riya, right? In fact, some of the ulama, they grade the difficulty. They'll say, for example, let's take this example of standing and praying, okay? Let's say I'm standing and praying, and my intention from the get-go, was to show off in front of people. That's obviously riya. Obvious, right? It's like that's level 1. Let's go to level 2. Let's say I'm standing and praying, okay? Now, my intention initially was for Allah, but the minute someone saw me, flip, okay? It started right, but it ended wrong. That's also riya, okay? Let's go to level 3. Level 3, I'm standing and I'm praying. My intention is only for Allah. Someone sees me. My intention stays only for Allah, okay? However, I know that someone sees me and I get more energetic. That's it. I just get more energetic, okay? I'm more motivated now. Before, only for Allah, not so much motivation. Now, a lot more motivation because people are seeing me. That extra motivation is also a type of riya, right? Now, how hard is it to see that? That's hard, right? That little spark you get inside of you, okay? That little extra oomph you get to stand a little longer, that's also coming from a place of riya. Okay, let's go to level 4. Level 4, I'm standing, I'm praying for Allah, for the sake of Allah. My intention is only for Allah. Someone sees me, my intention stays only for Allah. My level of energy does not go up, does not go down. However, because people have seen me, now I'm a little bit happy. I'm just a little bit more satisfied, okay? Like I'm finally, someone's seen that my intention didn't change, but I'm just a little bit more satisfied now, okay? Also a form of riya. It's even smaller. But now how hard? See, this is why you have to have muraqabah. Muraqabah is to be raqib, to always watch your nafs, like an eagle watches the lake looking for a little fish with 20/20. You have to watch your nafs like that. Okay, let's go to level 5. What's level 5? I'm standing, I'm praying for Allah. My intention is only for Allah. And that's it. And someone sees me. My intention stays for Allah. My level of energy does not go up and down. I don't care. They saw me, don't see me, it's fine. I don't care, okay? And I'm not happy or sad that someone noticed me or didn't notice me. However, I do feel like at least people owe me just a wee bit of respect. Just a little bit of respect. You know, I spent all this time praying Taraweeh. I need just, just a little bit, right? That desire for respect because of your act of worship is also a type of riya. Black ant on a black rock in a black night. Very difficult to notice, right? So, when it comes to religious acts, the slightest bit of desire for notoriety, recognition, respect, flush that out. Flush that out 100%. It should make absolutely no difference to you, right? If all the people praised you for praying, it should make no difference to you if they all blamed you for praying. That's how you know your intention is good. However, the line that he draws here says, that's for religious acts of worship, ibadat. When it comes to the dunya, there's a nuance, and that's what the whole first section was about. You see? If I'm a chef and I want people to see my work, and I need to be famous for my career, okay? That's very, very different than standing and praying. You see, big difference. Mu'amalat, one is mu'amalat, right? Dunyawi actions, and the other is ibadat. In one, it's okay to seek fame to a certain extent, and the other, it's never okay to seek fame in any extent. Make sense? Okay, so let's go to the next thing. فَإِنْ قُلْتَ طَلَبُهُ الْمَنْزِلَ وَالْجَافِ فِي قَلْبِ أُسْتَادِهِ. Now let's say, let's go back to what the first part is saying. You seek notoriety in the heart of your ustad, okay? وخادمي, and the person who's your servant, ورفيقه, and the person who's your friend, وسلطانه, and the person who's in political authority over you, ومن يرتبط به أمر مباح على الإطلاق كيفما كان أو يباح إلى حد مخصوص. He's like, is all those dunyawi things with the nuances, are they all okay to any extent, right? Or is it to some extent they're not okay? فأقول, so Imam Ghazali says, okay, let me explain this. يطلب ذلك على ثلاثة أوجه. This can be explained through three situations, right? وجهان منه مباحان ووجه محظور. Two of these are okay, one of them is not okay. Now we're going back to the dunyawi sense, mu'amalat. Two of them are okay, one of them is not okay. All right? أما الوجه المحظور. As for the one that's not okay, فهو أن يطلب قيام المنزلة في قلوبهم باعتقادهم فيه صفة هو منفك عنها. To the extent to which you want people to have an understanding of who you are, and you want notoriety and some type of fame and popularity in the hearts of people for an attribute which is not really you. Okay? That's problematic. So he says, مثل العلم, like knowledge, i.e., you want people to think that you're knowledgeable, but you're really not that knowledgeable, right? والنسب, or nasab, like you want people to think that you have this relationship with a family name, but you're not really a part of that family, right? Nasab is very important in this time because contracts, inheritance, right? Right? All those financial agreements, they all come through the ties of kinship, right? If you try to claim a tie of kinship that's not really belonging to you, you may even think that that's dunya, but to the extent that you want people to know you for this, like I'm a part of this family, but you're not. That's very problematic Islamically because inheritance, contracts ties up with that, right? That's very problematic. That type of seeking fame, even though it's in the dunya sense, mahdur, this is haram. فَيُظْهَرُ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ عَلَوِي. So, for example, this person is going to say, I'm an alawi, which is just a family name, okay? أو عالم, I'm a scholar. أو ورع, or I'm super pious. وَهُوَ لَا يَكُنُ كَذَلِكَ فَهَذَا حَرَامٌ. But you're not like that. Like if you're seeking notoriety, you're campaigning out there to, for people to know that you're of this particular quality, that you're very knowledgeable, you're an alim, you're a scholar, but you're not really a scholar. That's problematic because people are going to come ask you questions now. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَنَبْلُوَ أَخْبَارَكُمْ, in Surah Muhammad. وَلَنَبْلُوَ أَخْبَارَكُمْ, we're going to test you in your reputation. We will test you in your... Do you really want a reputation as a pious person? Do you really want that? Allah said He'll test you in that. How are pious people tested? Do you really want to be known in society as a pious person? How are pious people tested? Right? They're tested with the most difficult tests. They're tested with things that most people cannot handle. The prophets were tested with the most difficult of any human being. Then after them, the scholars, right? Do you really want that reputation? Maybe it's better just to lay low. It's usually the safest thing, right? So he says, that's haram. Because it's tricking people. Right? Even to the extent we have in books of fiqh, right? Like for men, like white in your beard, you're not supposed to dye it black. You're familiar with this fatwa? You're not supposed to dye it black. Why? Because it's a type of talbis, it's a type of trickery. You're making people think you're younger than you really are, which might help you get a marriage proposal. But you're tricking society, right? So that type of reputation, right? That type of reputation is not okay. You can't seek that type of notoriety because it's based on a lie. وَأَمَّا أَحَدُ الْمُبَاحَيْنِ. But as for the two conditions that it is permissible, now here we're going to get into politics a little bit. فَهُوَ أَنْ يَطْلُبَ الْمَنْزِلَ بِصِفَةٍ هُوَ مُتَّصِفٌ بِهَا. Is that you seek a reputation that really is you. That's really who you are. Okay? He gives a beautiful example about this. كَقَوْلِ يُوسُفَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. As Yusuf, the Prophet Yusuf said, اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم. What's he saying here? What is Yusuf saying here? who memorized Surah Yusuf and knows this ayah. What is Yusuf saying here? What's the context of this? Point me to be the treasurer. What's the context of the story? The king, okay, of the land has a dream. No one can interpret the dream. Yusuf is known as someone in prison who can interpret it. He brings him out of prison, asks him what this dream is. Yusuf tells him exactly. It turns out to be exactly right. The king is so impressed with Yusuf. And by the way, the king is not a Muslim. Allah says in Surah Yusuf, Deen al-Malik. He has his own religion. Okay? He asks Yusuf, where do you want to be? I'll give you any position you want. What does Yusuf say? I don't want to seek fame and fortune. That's not what we do as Muslims, right? No, he says, make me the treasurer. Inni hafidhun alim, because I am hafidh, I know how to preserve this task. I know everything about it. Hafidh is like hifz. I know everything about what it means to be a treasurer. Alim, and I'm very aware of this science. I'm very knowledgeable about it. So to propel yourself in a position like that, or let's say in a political situation where you're seeking some type of political notoriety and you're running a campaign, you know you're good for this job, and you know for a fact, okay, that you can do this better than anyone else, and you are trustworthy. Is it permissible for you to seek notoriety amongst people and fame and and fame, so that they will elect you? Yes, in this context, that seeking fame is permissible in this context, as long as what you're seeking, you really are qualified for. But now that means you have to be honest with yourself. And that's why Allah says, رَبُّكُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِكُمْ. Your Lord knows you best. So many of these nuances. Well, what about someone who's not really telling the truth? What about someone who's lying? What about someone who claims they're honest, but they know they're not really? Well, Allah will deal with that person on the day of judgment. The definitions, okay? فَإِنَّهُ طَلَبَ الْمَنْزِلَ فِي قَلْبِهِ بِكَوْنِهِ حَفِيظًا عَلِيمًا. He's saying Yusuf sought a position of notoriety in the heart of the king, for the king to see Yusuf as someone who is capable. Like totally fine in that sense, right? وَكَانَ مُحْتَاجًا إِلَيْهِ وَكَانَ صَادِقًا فِيهِ, right? And Yusuf was honest there. The other way in which it would be permissible, وَالثَّانِي أَنْ يُطْلَبَ الْإِخْفَاءِ الْعَيْبِ مِنْ عُيُوبِهِ, that you seek, okay, as a part of seeking notoriety, you try to shortcomings of yourself from becoming known. Because if the shortcoming does become known, you'll lose the notoriety, right? So he says this, أن يطلب إخفاء عيب من عيوبه ومعصية من معاصيه حتى لا يعلم, that you hide some shortcoming from your shortcoming, or some sin from the sins that you've committed, so that it's not known amongst people. فلا تزول منزلته به, because if people come to know about that, then your reputation and notoriety amongst people will be lost. فهذا أيضا مباح. This is also okay. But he's going to qualify it. لأن حفظ الستر على القبائح جائز. Because we know it's a part of our religion, right? Hiding faults is okay. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hide the faults of someone. The famous hadith, Allah will hide the faults of someone who hides the faults of other people, right? وَلَا يَجُوزُ حَتْكَ السِّتْرِ وَإِظْهَارِ الْقَبِيحِ. And it's not permissible to reveal, pull the curtain on people's shortcomings, right? وَهَذَا لَيْسَ فِيهِ تَلْبِيسٌ. It's like, look, this is not tricking people. And it's related to what they're doing, right? Doesn't society need to know about it? And isn't it a type of deception that people not know about it? He's like, no, this is not deception. بل هو سد لطريق العلم بما لا فائدة في العلم به. This is just cutting off knowledge. This is cutting off a path to knowledge that does not benefit. Cutting off a path to knowledge that does not benefit. كالذي يخفي عن السلطان أنه يشرب الخمر. Like the person who hides from the ruler that he drinks alcohol. Okay? وَلَا يَلْقِ إِلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ وَرَعٌ. And he doesn't have a reputation of being pious. He's just normal dude, doesn't have a reputation of being pious, but the person also doesn't want the sultan to know that he drinks alcohol, okay? فَإِنَّ قَوْلُهُ إِنِّي وَرَعٌ تَلْبِيسٌ. If that person were to come out and seek a reputation that he's pious, that would be deception. وَعَدَمُ إِقْرَارِهِ بِالشُّرْبِ لَا يُوجَبُ اعْتِقَادِ الْوَرْعِ. However, just people not knowing that he drinks alcohol, the fact that he hides that doesn't mean that he is pious. So the vice versa is not true. You see? So he's like, the vice versa is not true. So just because you hide it, as long as in the hiding of this thing, okay, you are not deceiving people about your reputation, then it's fine. It's absolutely fine. You know, nowadays, these political campaigns, what do people do when someone wants to run for office? Like someone's like 50 years old. They'll go and find a note that they wrote in elementary school that was inappropriate or something. Like, look at how inappropriate this person is. How could you trust them to be a governor or a senator or something? And it's got nothing to do, it's like 40 years ago, it's got nothing to do with where they are today or who they are today or something like that, right? You're just exposing someone's faults. And it's not related to anything about them today at all, right? That's a type of knowledge that doesn't benefit. If that person didn't want society to know about some mistake they made when they were 13 years old, jaiz. If they fear that their reputation would be lost because of people knowing about that, and it doesn't affect what they're actually doing, it's not disqualifying them from what they're, that's permissible. And hiding faults like that is, you know, important. ومن جملة المحظورات تحسين الصلاة بين يديه ليحسن فيه اعتقاده. And now he's going back to the point of riyā. Okay, so again, what we have to be careful of, though, is this person trying to impress people with the way that they worship Allah. فإن ذلك الرياء وهو ملبس أو ملبس. That is riyā, that is showing off, and that is a type of trickery. إذ يخيل إليه أنه من المخلصين الخاشعين لله. Because people are going to think, oh, what a pious person, but they're not really pious. ومراء بما يفعله فكيف يكون مخلصا. And this person is showing off, he's not really sincere. فيطلب الجاه بهذا طريق حرام. So to seek notoriety, again, he's going back to the point we made earlier. To seek notoriety in this religious sense is haram. وكذلك بكل معصية. وذلك يجري مجرى الاكتساب المال الحرام من غير فرق. It's no different, he says. To seek notoriety through religious acts of worship is no different than to seek money through a haram means. No different. Exact same thing. وكما لا يجوز له أن يتملك مال غيره, and we'll just end here. وكما لا يجوز له أن يتملك مال غيره بتلبيس في عوض أو في غيره فلا يجوز له أن يتملك قلبه بتزوير وخداع. Just like it's not permissible for you to own someone else's wealth through trickery, like to con them out of their wealth, like a con man, it's not permissible for you to own other people's hearts through notoriety by tricking them because you're making them act like you're pious. And he's creating this similarity between owning wealth and owning people's hearts, which is how he started the section, right? It's like when you own people's, what does it mean to be popular? What it means to be popular is to own people's hearts. People have an esteem of you. They have an assumption of you. They have respect for you, right? You own their heart, right? So you have that tricking people, you know, fake piety so that they think that about you is a con. It's a type of spiritual con. No different than if you were to con someone out of their what, call them up like your warranty on your car's expiring. Right? I need your credit card to reinstall, or whatever these con phone calls are. It's a con. That's a con, right? Tricking someone out of their wealth, that can be a con. But tricking them into thinking you're pious is also a con. On the one hand, you're stealing their wealth. On the other hand, you're stealing their heart. And Imam Ghazali says they're both haram. So this is the nuance with notoriety. فَإِنَّ مِلْكَ الْقُلُوبِ أَعْظَمُ مِنْ مِلْكِ الْأَمْوَالِ. And owning people's hearts is bigger than owning their wealth. So that is the section on the extent to which seeking notoriety and seeking a type of position amongst people, the extent to which it's permissible and the extent to which it's not. Remember, what he does this all throughout the Ihya. He's like a surgeon for the nafs. He's going to dissect the issue. He's dissecting jah. He's dissecting notoriety right now. He's like, here's what it is, here's what it looks like, here's the cranial component, here's the caudal component, here's the medial aspect, here's the lateral aspect, and here's what it is. And then in the next section, he's going to be like, now here's the disease. And here's why it's a disease. And then in the next section, he's going to be like, now here's how we treat it. Very much like a medical doctor. Exactly like how a medical doctor approaches a disease, a physical disease, he approaches the nafs. Just like a medical doctor. So he's like a physician of the soul. Imam Ghazali, rahmahullah. So we'll pause here. Any comments? 9 minutes. Take something away or anything? Sisters in the back are allowed as well. Is that clear? Yeah. I have not found a translation. I know Cambridge has done some good translations of different books, but Kitabul Jah wa ma yadhummu bihi wa ma yuhmadu bihi, I have not found a translation of that. Yeah. Okay, then we'll pause here. Next week we'll begin the next section. And the next section is بيان السبب في حب المدح والثناء وارتياح النفس به. Why is it? So this section was what? Like, what is fame and notoriety? But the next section is, why does the soul like it? Like, why? Why is the soul attracted to praise and to having a status amongst people? So that will be the next section. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله استغفروه إنه كان غفارا. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله